I'll bet you're waiting to hear that next chord. I'm sure you recognize what I was playing. We all know that Strawberry Fields Forever, well, it's a masterpiece. It's a song that feels like a dream, like a memory, and a hallucination all at once. But what if I told you the entire surreal, magical feeling of the song, the very thing that makes it float outside of reality, it all comes down to a single, solitary, wrong chord. A chord that, if you go by the book, by the strict rule book of music theory, well, it shouldn't be there. It's a tiny, fleeting moment in the chorus, but once you really hear it, you'll never be able to unhear it. It'll impact you in a different way. It's the secret ingredient. I believe this chord is the key that unlocks the whole song. So let's break it down together. But before we get to that special chord, we have to set the scene. Strawberry Fields Forever isn't just a song, it's a landmark. When it was released in February 1967, it was the world's first taste of the sessions for the legendary Sgt. Pepper album. In fact, producer George Martin later said that leaving Strawberry Fields off the album was the biggest mistake of his professional life, because it truly set the agenda for the whole album. In fact, the Beatles had recorded Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane, and these were supposed to be part of Sgt. Pepper. But these two songs were released as a double A side single, and so they couldn't be on the album. Now, Strawberry Fields Forever revealed the sound of a band that had quit touring and decided to use the studio as an instrument. They weren't making music to be played on a stage anymore. The record was the performance. And at the heart of this revolution was John Lennon, writing one of the most personal songs of his life. He started writing this song in Spain in 1966 while filming the movie How I Won the War. Being alone and far away from the chaos of Beatlemania, that gave him the space to look back on his childhood. The song is named after Strawberry Field, a children's home near where he grew up in Liverpool. The grounds of Strawberry Field were a secret garden, a place to escape. He later said, Strawberry Field is just anywhere you want to go. It became a symbol for a safe space in his own head, a retreat from all the pressures and confusion. Lennon even called the lyrics psychoanalysis set to music. He felt like he saw things other people didn't. And you can hear that sense of isolation in lyrics like, living is easy with eyes closed, misunderstanding all you see. And of course, the line, nothing is real. But that dreamy, disoriented feeling isn't just in the words. It's baked into the music itself. The Beatles and George Martin used all sorts of groundbreaking tricks to get this sound. That famous flute-like intro, I'm playing it on piano, but it's Paul McCartney on a mellotron. It's an early keyboard, kind of like a sampler. And Ringo's drums were muffled and processed so that they sounded deep and strange. There was reversed cymbals and cello notes that go too low for the range of a cello, but that's thanks to some tape speed magic that they did. And of course, there's the legendary tape splice. You Beatle fans out there know all about this. The version that we know, that we listen to, is actually two completely different takes, recorded in different keys and at different speeds. And George Martin and Jeff Emmerich, the engineer, seamlessly stitched together these two takes right around the 1 minute mark, all at Lennon's insistence. And all of this creates the song's unsettling, dreamlike vibe. But all of it, I believe, revolves around one central musical event, a single chord that ties the whole song to its deepest themes. let's zoom in on the chorus, right? It starts with this beautiful descending melody after the intro. So Lennon sings, "Let me take you down because I'm going to." Kind of feels like a gentle welcome into this dream world. And so far, the song is mostly in the key of B flat. Now, you don't need to be a music major, a music theory major, I should say, like me, to get this. You think of the key as the song's home base, a family of notes and chords that sound right together, that feel stable. In a major key like B flat, you can expect to hear certain chords. So the main chords you expect in B flat would be B flat major, C minor, D minor, E flat, F major, and G minor. And then, there's A diminished, but you won't hear that too much. But these are the rules. These are the standard building blocks. Now listen to the progression in the chorus. It goes from the home chord, B flat major, to another chord. Now, if this were a normal song following the rules, the most obvious choice here would be F major. That's the dominant chord, the 5 chord, and its job is to create a strong pull right back to the home chord. It's one of the most common and satisfying moves in all of music. So if Lennon had used that chord, it would have sounded like this. It sounds pretty pleasant, doesn't it? It sounds strong. It sounds confident. It's just like a normal song. But that's not what Lennon did. And it's not the masterpiece song that we know. Now listen to what he actually wrote. Hear that? That tiny shift, maybe not so tiny of a shift. So here's the correct version. But here's the actual version. That one little chord change, it changes everything. The F major is bright and it's very certain. The F minor is suddenly wistful, ambiguous. It's a little bit sad, isn't it? It doesn't pull you back home. It casts you adrift. It's unexpected. It's technically wrong. And that's the secret. That one chord is the key to the entire dream. So let's break it down even a little bit more. What is this chord and why is it so powerful? It's F minor, made up of F, A flat, and C. Now that A flat, it does not belong in the key of B flat major. It's an outsider. It breaks the rules of the home key. I've talked about this in previous videos. In music theory, this is called modal mixture or a borrowed chord. The F minor chord is borrowed from the parallel minor key, B flat minor. So for just a split second, Lennon is laying the sad, moody sound of a minor key over the major key's foundation. Think of it this way. Imagine you're painting a picture with a palette of bright, sunny colors. That's your B flat major key. I'm doing my Bob Ross impression here. Your happy little key. Then, for one single brush stroke, you dip your brush into a totally different, moodier palette and add a streak of deep, shadowy indigo. Purple, That one streak of indigo, that's the F minor chord. It doesn't belong, but its presence instantly changes the feel of the entire painting. It adds depth, shadow, emotional complexity. This wasn't an accident, you see. By this point, the Beatles were masters of using chords to create feeling. You can hear this in many of their songs. And John Lennon might have very well said that he didn't know the fancy terms. Maybe he didn't know what modal interchange was or borrowed chords, but he had a great ear He wrote what felt right. And so for a song about the hazy, unreliable nature of memory, what felt right was a chord that pulled the rug out from under your ears, as it were. The normal F major chord would have been a signpost saying, let's go, we're going right back to B flat. But the F minor chord, it's a question mark. It just hangs there, creating a feeling of doubt and uncertainty. It makes the music feel unmoored and floating, just like the lyrics. It's the perfect musical metaphor for not being sure if what you're seeing is real. In a sense, the music and the meaning of the song become one. This is where the true genius of this song shines through. That F minor chord isn't just a clever musical trick. Oh, wasn't that cool? It's the engine driving the song's entire emotional story. So take a look at the lyrics again, but with this chord in mind. Let me take you down 'cause I'm going to. Right on going to. That's where the F minor chord hits you. The music is telling you that this journey isn't to a clear, happy, definite place. It's a journey into a memory, a dreamscape. The chord shift makes the destination itself feel uncertain and surreal. Nothing is real. As he sings this line, the harmony is not giving us anything solid to stand on. I mean, we're going even farther. I mean, it's not returning to something stable. It's floating. It's not predictable anymore. The song feels like nothing is real because the chords won't let you get comfortable. And then he sings nothing. Well, now we're on G7. Nothing to get hung about. The line suggests a release from anxiety. And what does the music do? It lands on G7. We've drifted a long way from B flat. That's where we started. There's no strong, triumphant resolution. It sounds resigned, ethereal, almost unfinished. It's the musical equivalent of a sigh. Not letting go into peace, but into a state of hazy acceptance. That F minor chord completely changes the feeling of the chorus. With the normal F major, the line, I'm going to Strawberry Fields, would sound like a happy declaration. But with the F minor chord, it sounds like someone retreating into their own internal world, a bitter, sweet escape into the mist of their own mind. That's the why. That's the solution to the mystery. That's the reason Strawberry Fields Forever feels so magical and dreamlike. The reason it feels that way is because its central musical statement is a contradiction. It uses a major key, which we associate with brightness, happiness, solid. But then it injects a sense of minor key sadness right at its heart. It's the sound of memory itself, a sweet moment tinged with the sadness that it's gone. Here's the kicker. This brilliant use of one chord wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a huge creative explosion where the Beatles were breaking every rule they could find. They didn't even know most of the time they were breaking rules. They just played what they felt sounded right, what sounded good. Think about the song structure here. Typical Lennon, the rhythm is unstable. It doesn't just march along in strict 4/4 time like a lot of rock songs. The chorus shifts time signatures. It makes it feel like time is slowing down, stretching. It's another way that the music keeps you just a little off balance. And all of this, these unusual chords, this strange ethereal chord progression, this is all wrapped up in that legendary production, that famous splice between two different takes. How did they do that? One slow and dreamy, the other faster and heavier. They spliced them together. What a stroke of genius. And they were responding to what Lennon was kind of groping towards. This is what he wanted. They had to slow down the fast one and speed up the slow one until somehow they magically met in the middle. And the result is that the entire feel of the song subtly shifts at the 1 minute mark, adding another layer of subconscious strangeness. Then you have the outro. It's not just a fade out, it's a descent into beautiful chaos, a swarm of tape loops and clashing instruments and Ringo's tumbling drum fills. And it fades out, and then it fades back in, and you hear Lennon in the background going, "Cranberry sauce." He wasn't saying "I buried Paul," by the way. That fueled a massive conspiracy theory. He was just muttering "cranberry sauce." Why? I don't know. But the fact that it was so ambiguous is a perfect ending for a song built on a foundation of glorious uncertainty. When you see that F minor chord as just one piece of this bigger puzzle, along with the shifting rhythms, the spliced takes, the unusual instruments, you realize it wasn't just a wrong chord. It was the thematic heart of the entire experiment. It was the musical seed from which the whole psychedelic forest of the song grew. How do you like that metaphor? So the dreamlike magic of Strawberry Fields Forever, it isn't just some vague psychedelic vibe. It's the direct result of a deliberate and brilliant musical choice. It's the sound of one wrong note, A flat, in one wrong chord, F minor, and it breaks the rules to perfectly capture the song's soul. It transforms a nostalgic chorus into a profound statement on memory, reality, and the strange, beautiful places we go inside our own minds. The next time you listen to this song, and I encourage you to listen to it right away now, listen for it. Listen for that moment of beautiful sadness in the chorus. It's the key that unlocks everything. And now that you've heard it, you'll never be able to unhear it. What other songs do you know that you love? What other songs have a single moment, a chord, a note, a rhythmic change, or something that changes everything in the song for you? Let me know about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you have a song to suggest, we might spend another video breaking that one down. So if you've enjoyed this deep dive into one chord from a John Lennon song, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and if you have any other comments, be sure to leave those in the comment section. And I've got some other videos flashing up here on the screen. I can never remember where it is on the screen, but it's there somewhere. And you can get a chance to check out some other videos on my channel. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so, because it doesn't cost anything, and it helps the channel a lot.